reggae studio with our reggae ambassadors as they reveal the other side of the reggae beat outside the spotlight.
Another thing I saw in visions right in front of my eyes. Sisters prostituting, selling away their lives. They get but very little pay, the ones who clean the mess. Minority that sits on top just rate themselves the best.
My name is Keith Anderson, a.k.a. Bob Andy. Born 28th of October 1944. I feel like I went into the FBI. I'm in retirement era of Kingston. So that's why I was born in St. Andrew, just below Crossroads there. Life is a very strange evolution to this day. From the earliest recollections I have of being is, I'd say, must have been about 2 years old. I remember that I had to walk a second time because I felt gravely ill as a child. And so I don't have much recollection of my earliest walking days, but I just knew that between age 2 and 3 thereabout, when I had to make efforts to learn to walk again, I could have been about 3. And I became aware of who my mother was, and there was no suggestion or talk of a dad. My mother used to work up our camp. Those days, the British Army was stationed up our camp in Jamaica, and they were in charge of the West India Regiment. So there was a battalion of British servicemen here, and so the head of the army, all of that would be headed by the governor, and then the army, which was the brigadier, and then the colonel, which was Colonel Johnson. My mother worked with the colonel as a cook and butler. After the camp days, one aspect of it, I remember living on Gem Road, which is Kingston 13, with my mother. And I remember Hurricane Charlie in 1951, when I was 7 years old. I remember moving from, Hurricane Charlie was one of the most devastating experiences I've ever had. People talk about Gilbert, which was really rough too, but you can imagine being 7 years old and encountering something as horrific as my first hurricane. I remember Mrs. Smytle, the woman who owned the yard we lived in, about 6 o'clock the Friday, she just says, "Miss Daisy," which is my mother's name, "look at the sky, we're going to have a hurricane." And the sky was just red all over. And what I can remember about that Friday night was my mother was on her knees all night and just had me by her, and she was just praying through the storm. And then we moved from Gem Road to Fitzgerald Lane, which was the other side of Maxwell Avenue. And that's where I remember started going to what we'd call private school, where you learn about ABC and you buy stretcher and asham with your lunch money. And when I remember, whilst I was living on Fitzgerald Lane, I had received a drum, red, white, and blue drum from the Johnsons, which was a military drum, which was my first association with any kind of instrument and the desire to express myself through that kind of medium. So I mean, with John Connor was marching on the streets, and I'd be hitting my drums, playing my drums with my 2 sticks. And I went miles away. My mother lost me I lost her because, I mean, I was just going wherever the John Connors were going. One afternoon, a tall, very dark, maroon-looking woman walked into the yard, and I didn't know who she was. We lived in a tenement yard of about 4 families. the owners of the house and the land, and a separate house where they had 3 tenants, and we were one of those 3 tenants. And the lady worked out to be my grandmother. I was only to learn that later in the evening when she came, and she just packed a suitcase with my belongings, and I was off to Westmoreland without anyone making any kind of statement to me or asking me how I felt about the matter. I was shipped off to Westmoreland.
To be true to one another, to be kind and gentle to each other, to give your best when it's asked of you. Do what you've got to do when you're supposed to. You've got to feel it. You've got to feel the soul down inside of you. You've got to feel it twice times. One more time. It says, and if you're to feel it, you've got to be clean. You've got to make it straight. You can't be lean. To share the joys togetherness can bring. To the true soul, you'll just have to cling. Then you will feel it. You'll feel the soul, the soul, the soul inside of you. You've got to feel it deep down inside. To be true to one another, to be kind and gentle to each other, to give your best when it's asked of you. Do what you've got to do when you're supposed to. You've got to feel it. You've got to feel the soul down inside of you. You've got to feel it. Feel it. I can feel my soul. I can feel my soul. I can feel my soul deep down inside. It's the way I live my life. I try to live it clean. Don't want to be lean, so I can always feel my soul. I can feel it, I can feel it, I can feel it, I can feel it, I can feel my soul. I can feel it, feel it, feel it, feel it, feel my soul. Sometimes I feel it in my mind, at times in my heart, at times in my body, and every single part of me right now. I can feel it, I can feel it, I can feel it. I can feel it, I can feel it, I can feel it, I can feel it, I can feel my soul. I can feel it, I can feel it.
My grandmother must have loved me dearly because I had at that time my first demonstration of love, more than even my mother, came from my grandmother. So I started appreciating that relationship. And so I went to my grandmother's church, which was Baptist, and started off going to school in Westmoreland. And I was obviously a bright child because I remember the kind of reaction and responses I used to get from my teachers. And so my grandmother died, and my mother came to bury her, and someone asked, she remarked about having to take me back to Kingston. And someone said, well, you want to leave him with me? And she said, oh, yes, you want him? And I said, yes. She said, okay. And so I was just shunted to another family member. And then I started going to another church with this family member, my mother's aunt, which would be my grand aunt. And her church was Salvation Army. And I remember playing drums and tambourine in Salvation Army, so I became musically active. And there was no children's choir as such, but we spent long hours in church. One of the things my memory of church was very boring and drawn out. And so while these country people would sing these hymns, and they would sing them very slowly and very, and so because I had to be there, I found another way of singing these songs. I found myself another note just to stay in touch. And so I was expressing my knowledge or a feel of harmony, which I didn't realize I was doing then. And so I did quite a lot of singing in the Salvation Army Church. And then things got very awkward with these grand relatives I was living with, and I just ran away to Savlamar. The family that took me in Savlamar, the guy had 19 children, and I was number 20. There was a member of that family who was a blue seam policeman. And I dreamt early the Sunday morning that he came to me and said, hey, they're here for you. You have to leave. And as I woke up out of my sleep, someone came and said that somebody was outside to see me. It was my grand aunt. And she was most perturbed, fretful and worried. She said she's going to take me back to Kingston to my mother. And she did that.
My resistance is getting weaker. I just can't stand the pressure. I can't be any meeker. I've got to find me some of the treasure I need. Nothing to be a man, because I was born a man. I deserve the right to live like any other man. It says very simply, my mind's in such a state. Sometimes it makes me sick. At times I try to hate, but I just don't know the trick. I need nothing to be a man, because I was born a man. I deserve the right to live like any other man. Man, I just want the right to live. Experience has taught me wisdom. Thank God I've got some life left. I'm getting out of serfdom. My soul has stood the test. I need nothing to be a man, because I was born a man. I deserve the right to live like any other man. I deserve the right like any other man. I just want to live so that I can give. I just want to live so that I can give. Give up my heart, Give up my work, give up my love. Every day, anywhere, anytime, no matter to who. I just want to live so that I can give. I just want to live so that I can give. I just want to live so that I can give to you. You give to me. That's what life is all about. Giving and taking.
I went back to school on my own volition. I just went with somebody in the yard who was going to Russell Primary School, and I said, listen, I'm coming to school with you. And I went to school, and the teacher asked me, the headmistress asked me, she said, listen, I outlined my situation, and I said, I didn't know how I was going to fund my lunch and the rest of it and bus fare, but I needed to be in school. And she empathized with me, and she said, if you bring your birth certificate, I'll admit you. And so I went, and I just, very assertively said to my mother, I'm needed. Birth certificate, and I guess she was embarrassing to giving me lunch money to go to school, whilst I was so intense about it. Funny thing about school, I'd missed so many years of schooling that by the time I went to school, I was placed in a class based on my age and not my learning. And so whilst I was able to grasp the verbal suggestions from teacher and the relationship with the students in the class, study habits I did not have. And I'd missed so many steps as far as the formalized educational process was concerned that I was just grabbing at straws. So school was for me just a way of keeping myself off the street. A club called Champion House, corner of Maxfield Avenue and Lyndhurst Road, which was close to it's on Maxfield Avenue, and Maxfield Park was close by. So I used to go up there and watch. I remember the first time I saw Clement Dad. I didn't know who he was then, but he was conducting, what you call it, oh man, sometimes some simple words just fly out of your head. He was auditioning singers for his newly found record label. And so I saw people like Alton and Eddie, the Charmers, and I distinctly remember Tony Gregory. Do you know who Tony Gregory is? He was, and still is, one of the sharpest entertainer this country has ever seen. I mean, he really had style. And after the audition, he was playing the piano. And I watched his fingers, and I went home and tried what he was playing, and it worked. He was playing a 12-bar blues, and I started playing at an F sharp, which is a black key on the piano. And that is where I picked up my first association with sound. And then I went to another church again because I was with this family, and her son was going to the Kingston Parish Church. So I became a member of the Kingston Parish Church and a member of the Scout Troop. It's a very disheveled and unbroken and no particular pattern to that kind of life, but I was just feeling my way through life. And it was at Kingston Parish Church that I met Tyrone Evans, where the harmony that I discovered years before in the Salvation Army Church became evident because one of us started singing the song by Alton and Eddie. We were at the Ward Theatre, going to a church picnic, waiting on the bus at the Ward, when my friend started, "If I had a pair of wings," and I just started singing the harmony. And so we just looked at each other quite strangely, as if questioningly asking, "Oh, you know that too?" And so we interchanged the harmony, so we knew that we were onto something. Because our voices blended, and we just took any of those duets and just sung them. In the Kingston Parish Church Hall, there was another piano, and he and I and people used to just crowd around the piano and we would just sing. And we recorded that song as a duo, and then we decided that there were some very strong duos at the time. There was Alton and Eddie, there was the Charmers, there was Keith and Enid, there was Joe Higgs and Wilson, there was the Blues Busters, We were just flat out intimidated by these powerful singers, so we decided maybe we should become a more numerous group where we could pull on strength and the security in numbers. And so we formed different groups with different young men, teenagers. The group was once called the Binders. The group had about 2-3 different names before we ended up with the Paragons. The name was given to us by Junior Menz, who were to later sing with the Techniques the song of Queen Majesty. Junior Menz, Errol Menz is a guy who's, after he left the Paragons, he gave the group the name. He went to New York in the early days, went to school with Little Anthony and Imperials, Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers, the early doo-wop days. And when he came to Jamaica, he told us about an American group called the Paragons that was defunct. And he left the name of the group. And so the group changed Leroy Stamp, Pele, Henry Buckley, who was to later on become the bandmaster for the Police band, and Trevor Tennant, who was an Excelsior high jumper, who was the bass singer. And then Tyrone and myself found Howard Barrett and another singer, Leroy Stamp, who I thought was not a compatible member of the group, though he could sing. And we were rehearsing as a trio when someone told us about John Holt, who was already quite a popular name and a more established voice. And so he came into the Paragons. We started singing with the Mighty Vikings weekly. And so we became a household name in Jamaica before we did any recordings.
I am rich cause the sun shines for me. I never cry cause I know that the rain falls for me. I live like a king though the salary I earn is thin. I realize money's not all there are other things. So I can sing now do 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 do. As I do 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 do. All I need is to always be free. If people would leave I alone, I could simply be me. The moon shines at nights, the sun is always out somewhere. I have the assurance these blessings will always be there. I can sing now, do 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 do. 'cause the sun shines for me and you and me and you. I never cry 'cause I know that the rain falls for me. I live like a king, though the salary I earn is very thin, so thin. But I realize money's not all there are other things. So I can sing now, do 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 I'm a very rich man, 'cause everything in life is free, belong to me. Like the birds that sing, fish that swims, and the stars that flicker in the skies at night, the sun that shines, moon that shines, they all are mine. The air, very air I breathe, everything is mine. I live like a king, 'cause every single thing is mine. Every little thing is mine. Mine. Everything is mine.
When we went to Studio One, and I played all these, I was playing the piano and rehearsing the group, and Dad was most impressed with how tidy we were. We had good harmonies. We were a disciplined set of youth who were going to school. Very much a little bit different from the youth that he was accustomed to. We recorded our first single with him, a song I wrote called Love at Last, which went #1 on both charts, JBC and RJR. Then we had the interest of Ratliff Butler and Desmond Chambers, who both worked with RJR. And we used to just drive around and drink a lot of liquor. Just at the various bars and just having good times. And these guys, these announcers made sure that our records got played in the air. And so Love at Last became a #1. And then we did a Drifters cover, Follow Me, which became strong on the charts again. And 1965, that was, the group became a little bit peeved with John Holt, and they separated, and we brought Vic Taylor in as the lead singer. 1966 was the year when it was the first time they were going to have established artists in the festival song competition as against amateurs, to be like an amateur exposure. But that year they invited a broad spectrum of artists to submit songs. And so the Blues Busters were a finalist, Paragons were a finalist, Joe Higgs was a finalist, Winston Samuels, Derek Harriott, and the Maytals. And so we brought Vic Taylor into the group for the festival song competition. And the songs weren't necessarily anything about the festival either. And festival was won that year by Bam Bam. And after the festival, a member of the group came to me and said, Vic Taylor is a very good singer, but John's voice was more compatible with what the group intended to do and intended to go. And I agreed. I just decided that if he were coming back in, though, I was going to leave, because we had different ideas of how the group should go and where it should go. And so I was very distraught because this was my support group, not just as singers, but these were my close friends. And I left and went back to Coxsone, who remembered me as a very, the utility person in the group, who arranged the harmony and played the keyboard so we could rehearse and wrote the songs. So I forged an alliance with Coxsone, and they went to Duke Reed, Treasure Isle. When I went to Coxsone, I started taking out records. Pack up the box with the records and the books and take them to the shop, sign them out to the shop, and hurry back to the studio to watch sessions in progress. I had a few songs that I had written, but when I saw the Ken Booth and the Wailers and Delroy Wilson and those people in the studio, I was intimidated. So I reckon I'd give the songs that I wrote to other singers. And so the first two songs, I gave one to Ken Booth, I Don't Want to See You Cry, another one to Delroy Wilson, Impossible Love, It's Impossible. And I just started writing songs for Marcia. On the bus back from taking records out one day, Song to Experience came to me. Bam! Lyrics and melody. And I went back to the studio and recorded the song with Delroy Wilson in mind. He didn't turn up, and so I voiced the song myself.
The girl doesn't want me around. She's got something to hide. I think she wants a clown, someone to take her for a ride. And I'm telling her that I'm too experienced to be taken for a stroll. I'm too experienced to let someone wreck my soul. I'm too experienced to be taken for a ride. I know that it's not my foolish pride. She hates the sight of me. Why? Because I turn her off or down. She's always saying that we were meant to be. Somehow that little girl thought I was gonna be her clown. Telling her that I'm too experienced to be taken for a stroll. Too experienced for someone to rock my soul. Too experienced to be taken for a ride. I know that it's not my foolish. Take it, won't you? Take a piece. the girl doesn't want me around. I don't know why. She's got something to hide. I think that little girl wants a itty bitty clown. Someone to take for a ride. But I gotta tell her to experience, to be taken for a stroll. To experience, to let that little girl wreck my soul. To experience, to be taken for a ride. I know that it's not my foolish bride. To experience, to be taken for a stroll. I'm to experience, to be taken down the road for a stroll. To experience, to be taken for a ride. I know that it's not my fault.
Studio One, I did a lot of background vocals for singer from the Bahamas called Owen Boyce that have a harmony for Marcia Griffiths and writing. And till I found the courage or had enough, felt secure in myself as a more rounded person now, songwriter, singer, to be able to do my recordings. And so I did those recordings when I was with Coxsone. And I did 12 songs whilst I was at Coxsone. And those songs constituted this Babandi songbook. And till as we speak, it's still one of the best-selling albums in Jamaica's music history that was done in this country. I used to get some money from taking the records out because I was employed as a record carrier. But then once I started spending more time doing these harmonies in studios, whatever, whenever they had harmonies, they'd have me putting on the harmonies, 2, 3-part harmonies, put one on, they just bounce from tape to tape because they had 2 tracks. As against when Tyrone Evans and myself did our first duet at Federal Recording Studios, they only had a mono system then, so it was just 1 track. So you had to rehearse with the band, and then the next takedown was the live take. At Coxsone, I encountered stereophonic movement for the first time. You're able to do all of the band on 1 track, and then you're able to do the voice on that, and then you can bounce a track onto something else, and then do another harmony. So I learned all of this multiple tracking at Coxsone. So I was learning to produce, to do, to be able to do harmonies on my own, and writing, and whatever else was to be learned there. And people used to come to Coxsone on a Friday for measle or meager pittance, whatever he would hand out. And after a while, we have records being played on the radio. It wasn't hunky-dory to not get paid for it. So although we didn't have any artist who was getting any big pay, not blaming it all, blaming all of this on Coxsone, it was just the order of the day. It wasn't a business. He was a man who had financed his own recording studio and was spending money with using musicians to back the recordings, to accompany the recordings. So most of the money he was making those days was from his sound system. But I was taking out records. So I know a song like I'm Going to Put It On. I know that song sold thousands because when a record was released, the first thing happened, the jukebox, when there were lots of jukeboxes in Jamaica those days, would order 1,500 records on white label, blank label. So he made his money back in the first 1,500 records being sold. And I used to take these records out until he bought a Volkswagen van that Sonny used to drive. And so there wasn't a need for me to take the bus and take records out anymore. There's an American producer named by the name of Luther Dixon, who had produced people like Chuck Jackson and worked with One Scepter Records, which was owned by one American jurist called Florence Greenberg. And Dan Warwick used to be the main artist on this label. And One, there was a subsidiary label. And Luther Dixon was responsible for some of Chuck Jackson's successes. One of the big songs of the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, a song called The Prophet. Do you love with all of your heart, just for a day? Well, Luther Dixon was responsible for that song and some others. And he came to Federal Records to work with them, produce. And so he covered a song to Experience and let them say it, which they call Bayo Papu Papa Vaya, recorded by his artist called Eddie Lovett. And so I remember myself as the first Jamaican artist to have had his work covered by a foreign act. But then the Couriers and Luther Dixon took credits as writers for my 2 songs. And so that is my first exposure to piracy. People downright stealing your work. In the mix of that, however, they had recorded a rhythm sung by a Canadian singer-songwriter called by the name of Joe South. And they had a rhythm at Federal Records for a while, and someone recommended me to them that I'd be the best person to sing on that rhythm, which was the first song I was going to cover. The song was entitled Games People Play, which was recorded in 1969, and that just became a monstrous hit for I. And so that was my first solo exposure. And I'd had all those songs with Coxsone that were selling, but they weren't as huge single successes as Federal Records. Harry Johnson from Harry J Records, who Marcia Griffiths knew for a long time. He had a band called the Checkmates, and she used to sing with the band. Harry J invited me one evening to come and listen to another rhythm, which was a recording of Young, Gifted and Black. And I'd invited Marcia along. And the intention was for me to sing the song on my own. But Norris Ware, Judy Mowat, Marcia Griffiths and myself were in the studio. So we just arranged the harmony, Young, Gifted and Black. And I asked Marcia if she would choose to sing parts of the verses, and she said yes. And we sung the song, and I totally forgot about the song. That was in early 1970, I think. And like 3 months after, Harry Johnson came to us and asked us if we had passports. And we said, well, yes. Why? He said, well, the song was becoming a big hit in England, and they're going to need us to go on Top of the Pops. And so Marcia and myself were off to England in the spring of 1970 to represent Top of the Pops, Jamaica music on Top of the Pops. And I guess you can say the rest is now history, as they often say. In 1972, we did another recording called Pied Piper, went into the charts again. Marcia Griffiths and myself did the whole European stint, doing various television shows to promoting the album. Elton John was a guy who was around in the times when we were on our tours. He was doing these television recordings too for his taping for his first single that I remember, the Barda song. Holy Moses, I have been received. I have seen the spectre, he has been here too. So we saw Elton John's being groomed into becoming a superstar. We came back from England and I did some recordings with Harry Johnson, because by then Marcia Griffiths and myself had gotten a contract with CBS Records. But we were the hottest thing in England at the time, because then Desmond Dekker was hot, Jimmy Cliff was hot, but Young, Gifted and Black, Bob and Marcia were definitely an item. And Johnny Nash's manager negotiated a contract with CBS. And I came back to Jamaica, and Marcia and myself did an album, very good album. And CBS shelved it, and we think they only signed us up because they wanted to push Johnny Nash. Not that he wouldn't have been a mammoth success on his own, but they were trying to have an American boy singing reggae music. So if they removed the authentic reggae artist out of the way, then it would be easier for them. Because CBS, whom Johnny Nash was signed to at the time, just signed us up, paid us a small advance, and just shelved the album. And so by the time I got back to Jamaica, I was just disappointed, disillusioned, and out of it. And Bob Marley was on the rise, recording at Harry J Records. As soon as he got his act together and worked out his direction, he decided that for whatever reason the Wailers had a parting of the ways, and he decided to sing with backup vocals, and so the I3 evolved. And so Marcia went to do the I3 thing, and I just didn't do much music for a while. Don't realize so let them say you're mad. They don't know how it feels to be sad. I don't know who could
side. Yeah. No place to lay my head, not even on a bed. Can't remember when I've eaten bread, and it was true back then. They don't seem to realize what really keeps me alive. It's the power that's so great, no man can destroy. They'd like to understand just where I get my helping hand. So they criticize while I look and live to the top now. Babu ba, oh babu babu baba ya, babu babu baba ya, babu babu baba ya, babu baba ya, babu babu baba ya, babu babu baba ya, babu babu baba ya, babu baba ya. The people see me acting strange, they might think it's a burning shame. The people don't realize the pangs of hell that I feel. So let them say I'm mad, they don't know how it feels to be sad. I don't know who could be glad in a situation like this, when my last shirt's torn off my back, but that's not quite the fact. My shoe is down to my soul. No place to lay my head, don't even own a bed. I can't remember when I've eaten bread, and it was true back then. But babu babu baba ya, babu babu baba ya, babu babu baba ya, babu baba ya, babu babu baba ya, babu babu baba ya, babu babu baba ya, babu baba ya, babu babu baba ya, babu babu baba ya. Talking about life, that's what life is all about. Sometimes when it face you, takes the heart out of you, but you got to keep moving on, cause you know there's a power out there that will guide you to your destiny. Ba ba boo ba boo ba boo ba boo ba boo ba 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 ya.
I became a member of a drama group in University of the West Indies. And I did various drama workshops, 1 or 2 plays. And then Lenny Littlewhite had me audition for the film Children of Babylon. And we did that, and that is history. And I registered a company and formed my own record label and just started doing my own recordings. Did an album called Retrospective, album called Freely, an album called Friends, but I was always doing everything on my own. So I never had a team. And you don't make it without being an individual in this business. To pick up my solo career then, was very difficult for me. Coxsone had by then compiled songbook, and songbook was keeping me in terms of the strength of the songs, which I mean, I knew I did the best I could whenever I tried to write a song, but I quite honestly didn't realize the potency of those material. When I started realizing how strong they were, I just said, okay, I want to leave it business for a while. And so this resurgence you see me at now. Then I had a long stint there when I just couldn't get any stage performances. I wasn't having a good time on stage. So no band wanted to work with me after a while, and I didn't want to work with any band because I was very much a perfectionist. And I'd hated to hear after 2-3 rehearsals to go on stage with a band and they were playing something differently. And my emotions were very outspoken, and people didn't like that. I wasn't tactful or hypocritical enough to grin and bear it. So I just fell out with the music fraternity, and so I just stopped doing shows. I just went abroad to live.
Just take these chains away and set me free. Remove my outer bondage and we will agree. Too long I've been a slave, I refuse to be anymore. I'd rather dig my grave than be locked behind the door. I wanna help myself be an independent man. I don't know what to give me a helping hand. Whether you're black, whether you are white, I don't give a damn. I just wanna be alright. I'm free, I'm free, 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 yeah, I'm free. Ooh.
I was the first chairman of the Caribbean Copyright Organizations. I hear a lot of people today talking about copyright and getting praises and credits for being, but I am the person who was the forefront of the copyright, and all of the artists from my era will attest to that. There are various names here now that they're taking credit. I was the one who told Michael Manley when he asked me what he could do for me, and I told him, you couldn't do anything for me, but you could do something for my colleagues and myself. If you give us a copyright law, then we'll have access to international conventions and other societies. And I was the one who went to Vivian Blake, who was the Minister of Industry. I was the only artist there representing the copyright situation with all these other Sonia Pottinger, Federal Records, Dynamic Records, all these people went, and I was the only person who went representing the artist. And surely they gave the manufacturers the edge. They didn't want us to have any copyright because that's where the money was coming from. So all these manufacturers screamed off our copyrights before we were able to have proper registration done. A lot of them have even tried stealing our songs. These producers, Coxsons, Pottinger and all these people, when you record your songs, they take a part of the publishing because they were more hip to what was happening in the legal aspect of things. So, and as a person who was an intense advocate of copyright, I was becoming immensely political. Well, the music today is riding on. It is progressing. There are aspects of it that some of us are not fond of. But for as wide and far-reaching that the music has become, how do you fault that? How do you negate that? The music is being listened to, viewed, and bought up by people all over the world. So as far as what people call rap or dance hall is concerned, so you can question some of the contents, lyrical contents. You could do that in my era too, and successive eras. My take on the matter is that every generation has to have its say. My generation, my parents were not in agreement with the kind of music we were doing because they used to call it rag music, rag or reggae, rag songs. Once you weren't singing something spiritual, you were singing rag song. And if you were singing rag song, you was going to give your soul to the devil. No one talked about the fact that there was a living to be made there. It was an avenue for expression. So, and we stuck to it, and it is now history. One of the commodities that Jamaica clings to because it's so vibrant. And so the same goes for this generation. I mean, this is how they feel, this is what they live, these are their experiences, and this is the medium through which they express this experience.
I've got to go back home. This couldn't be my home. It must be somewhere else, or I would kill myself because can't get no clothes to wear, can't get no food to eat, can't get a job to get bread. That's why I've got to, if I've got to walk, to run. There is no gladness, nothing but sadness, nothing like a future here. I've got to leave this land, I've got to find myself on some other side. I just can't stand this life of living because can't get no clothes to wear, can't get no food to eat, can't get a job to get bread. That's why I've got to, walk, I've got to run. This couldn't be my home. It must be somewhere else, or I would kill myself, because can't get no clothes to wear, can't get no food to eat, can't get a job to get bread. That's why I've got to, if I've got to walk, if I've got to fly, if I've got to run, if I've got to swim, this could never, never be my home. Never, never be my home. This could never, never be my home. This could never, never be my home. Never, 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 never be my home. Couldn't be my home. Got to go where the land is green. Got to go where I get some food, peace of mind and love. Got to go back home. I really got to go back home. I really got to go back home. I really got to go back. Really got to go. I really got to go back home.